Hey guys, so I'm back with another video. In this video I'm going to be talking about the mental challenges that go with body transformation. I've been asked this question quite a bunch of times actually, and like one of the comments that I'm going to be showing you here from Benjamin, he asked me the same kind of situation, same kind of question as well. So literally this is my sixth take of this video. And now I've decided to basically put it into different parts, and this is going to be part one. And in this part one, basically I'm going to be talking about cravings only, okay? Because I tried to do it the other way, where I tried to combine everything. It went over like 40 minutes, and I think it's way too long, and it's a little bit hard for the viewer to consume, I think. So I will just talk about cravings, particularly in this video, and I'm going to be giving you 13 different tips, basically, okay? So well, I have this stuff on my second monitor here. Well, the first and the foremost, the most important thing I think that to avoid cravings is that you need to be prepared mentally. What do I mean by being prepared mentally? It means that, first of all, you need to understand that you are gonna have cravings. Most likely you are going to have cravings. So you need to remember that and understand the fact that, okay, eventually there is going to be a time where I'm going to be craving for some stuff, and you need to be prepared mentally to be able to deal with it, okay? Most people fail at this, I think, significantly, and one of the biggest issues with cravings is that, especially the people who are not mentally prepared, is that craving turns into binge eating, and binge eating turns into complete failure. What I mean by complete failure is that people give up after going through a binge eating session, and they're like, okay, just whatever, and then they go back to their old eating habits, and they forget about the body transformation and everything they've been hoping for. All right, so being mentally prepared for any kind of craving is the first thing to do, okay? I'm more old school like this. So when the craving comes, you need to be able to remind yourself that, okay, I'm not going to give in to this feeling of hunger or craving, and I'll just go through with it, okay? So that's the first thing. One thing about cravings is that it is much better to get ahead of it than dealing with it, okay? So if you can avoid having a craving or having the feeling of a craving, right, rather than actually having the craving, it's much better to, to basically avoid it in the first place, okay? So you don't have to deal with it, because dealing with it is more difficult than not having it, all right? Tip number 2. I just mentioned you need to get ahead of cravings. So how do you do that? You need to prepare your food, okay? When you're on a diet, prepare your food beforehand so that once a craving occurs, there are various reasons to why craving occurs, and one of the reasons is that you're hungry or you just want to eat something, and then suddenly you think about like some food that you've been craving and or you like to eat during like that particular time or whatever, right? So if you have your food prepared, which is basically the food that you're going to be consuming during your diet, you can just basically consume that food instead, and then it will most likely stop your craving, okay? So that's very important, because at this day and age where we have access to anything we desire within few minutes with our cell phone, right? Or our computer and internet and everything. So now I'm going to be talking about another thing. So the food that you have that you constantly crave for, okay? So for me personally, I'm a chocolate person. I love anything with chocolate, okay? Fudgy, all this, the melt in your mouth kind of chocolate. So I'm crazy for those. The problem with it is that if I have chocolate in my diet, eventually there's going to be a point where I'm definitely not going to be able to stop myself, or I'm going to be convincing myself. The mind is a very special thing. You're literally going to have times where let's say there is a food that you crave for and you're like, I just want to have like, let's say one piece or like this much of it. And after you finish that, there's going to be a time where your mind is going to be like, how about like this more? Let's say you had like 2 cookies and then your mind is telling, we just had 2. So if you have one more, it's like, another 100 calories, 150 calories. It's not a big deal. We can burn it off with like doing cardio. Maybe we can, perform like more reps at the workout tomorrow. So you're going to be surprised how your mind is able to convince yourself to eat more stuff. So what I prefer is that I know that I have a weakness for this type of food and I cut it out completely. Might not be something that you enjoy, but I feel like it is the easier way because I'm more of on the side of preventing it rather than dealing with it. Okay? So to be able to prevent it, I cut out the food that I have a weakness for. And it's nothing to be ashamed of, okay? If you have something like that, you need to admit to yourself, basically, it is what it is, okay? And you just need to deal with it, okay? So don't be afraid of it. Now, with your cravings, there is also another tip, basically, I can give you, is that substituting those foods, okay? So there is, also like there is the IIFAM method, which is basically if it fit your macros, which means that basically you consume whatever you want. It's a dietary method, as long as it fits your, calories, basically. So it is one way, and then you have the substitute method where instead of, let's say, having a chocolate chip cookie, you make yourself a chocolate protein cookie with artificial sweeteners and like, chocolate whey protein or, stuff like that. So, do they work? Yes. Do they work for everyone? No. Do I like them? No. Have I used them? Yes. I'm gonna mention it short here. I think I will make another video very detailed about this particular topic, I think. So with the substitute food method, my biggest issue, especially when I'm on a body transformation kind of big diet, is that substitute food just don't cut it for me, okay? So when I'm craving for chocolate chip cookies and I make a artificial sweetened chocolate dish, kind of like cookie type of thing, it just doesn't cut it for me, and it actually makes me crave more for the real thing, because let's be honest, the real thing always will taste much better than the other type, okay? So personally, this is what I think. You can try it though. If it, for example, helps you stop your craving, you can try substituting it with something more calorie friendly, diet friendly, or if it's fit your macros, if you're like on a keto or like some kind of diet like that, okay? So it's something you can try, and I will definitely make a video about like getting in depth with these substitution methods and all that kind of stuff, all right? Well, now let's say you decide to go with cutting out your food, okay? Now, you might have, if you're like my age, my friends, like most of my friends, they already have families, they have children. So what's gonna happen basically with cutting out food, right? So the family plays a role here. So what you need to do is basically like you need to talk to your family or your partner or whatever you have like close to, whatever person you have, is that get their support. These people, they obviously love you, okay? And they will try to do their best to support you. Now, there's one thing that you need to remember is that the world doesn't revolve around you. So just because you're going on a body transformation, unless it's for like serious medical reasons or something, right? If you're going on a body transformation or something like that, right? Don't be the type of person that tries to make everyone change, okay? So it's better that you communicate and then try to find a solution and get their support. So what do I mean by that? For example, like cutting out food, you need to get rid of all the food you have at home. But let's say you have children and your children love ice cream, okay? Now, you cannot get rid of the ice cream, right? So this also comes back to the first point that I made, being mentally prepared. Well, it's first of all, tough luck, okay? There's nothing you can do about it. You cannot throw away your children's ice cream just because you want to go on a body transformation, okay? So, but in this case, what you're going to do is that first of all, mentally prepare yourself. And let's say if it's not something like ice cream or something, like in your mind, prepare yourself and tell yourself that, okay, this food is off limits. Absolutely off limits. I don't even touch this food. Okay? So, of course, the best option and the most ideal option is to get rid of them completely so that you don't even think about it. You don't even have the option of thinking about it. Okay? But if not, well, then you have to basically create a solution to the problem, right? And also with your partner or your wife or husband or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, you can communicate with them. Maybe they can even hide the food, right? Like, as long as, you know, whatever it takes to basically help you and like not making other people suffer around you, if it makes sense, okay? So don't make people around you or don't make the people who love you suffer during your transformation, and try to get their support. And when you have their support, you also will have the feeling of accountability, which is also very important. That is also one of the reasons why I always reply in the comments when I talk to people. I actually tell them, hey, because there are like a lot of comments where people talk about like, oh, I'm currently doing my own transformation and like I've done this much so far and that much so far. I tell them, hey, very good job, right? And then after you're done, let me know. Comment below, right? Why do you think I make that? Is it because that I just want to see their comments? Do I know them? Not really. I'm trying to be helpful to the people and supportive and make them feel a little bit more accountable, okay? Once you are in that kind of position where you think that, okay, these people are expecting me to do this or to perform this or, you know, achieve that, right? You're most likely going to stick to your diet or body transformation or weight training more, okay? So about being accountable. So another thing with the cravings is that make sure that you tell everyone that, you know, in this kind of relationship that you're going on a body transformation and this kind of stuff and you have like cravings. If you need help, basically get this help from people nearby. Let's say it's sometimes hard for you to control yourself, but if your wife knows that you have this weakness of, for example, like having these cravings at certain times, and you tell your wife that, hey, listen, whatever I do not let me have this food, okay? And then it's gonna work out, really, unless, you know, you're not being like actually a bad person about it, okay? So that's what I mean, basically. Get help from people who are close by. So another point, right? It's often mentioned, but I think not everyone talks about like why. So getting enough sleep, right? You need to get as much sleep as possible. First of all, if you're lacking sleep, you're most likely gonna have cravings. This is literally like based on studies. Okay, the people who lack sleep or who sleep less than 8 hours and whatnot, they tend to be more overweight and they tend to have more cravings. The other reason is that the more you sleep, guess what? The less time you have to think about food, the less time you have time to eat food, the less time you have to crave. Okay? So sleeping is good. Try to get as much sleep as possible. You are not supposed to have lack of sleep until you go down to really low body fat levels, which was, for example, like for me, it was about like my last month of body transformation. So you're not going to be having lack of sleep just because you're in a diet, okay? When you're carrying that much fat, it won't be an issue at all. Unless if you're having them, that's most likely psychological and it should pass. Now another point that's also commonly mentioned, being hydrated. So if you are dehydrated, you are most likely gonna crave food, okay? And that's gonna be very difficult. And especially when you're really dehydrated, it may lead to a binge eating fest, okay? So try to stay hydrated, and also take advantage of drinks like sugar-free, calorie-free drinks like coffee, tea, and stuff like that, or maybe like Diet Coke and all that kind of stuff, okay? So, I mean, if you're on like keto or something, like you can have bulletproof coffee and stuff like that, but that's because, you know, basically it's in your diet, and also it keeps you satiated for much, much longer periods of time. So, it's fine, but what I'm talking about is like an overall concept, okay? Like when I was on keto, I haven't had any kind of drinks with calories in them, okay? Completely none. So, speaking of bulletproof and satiating foods, consume more foods that have higher satiety levels. So, you can literally Google this, okay? You can literally Google like most satiating foods and stuff like that, right? But please remember that these lists, although they are kind of like universal stuff, it doesn't apply to every single person, right? For example, like you're gonna see that number one will be like potato, if I'm not mistaken, right? So potato just doesn't cut it for me. I can eat a lot of potato and I don't feel as satiated as I'm supposed to, okay? So, but you can take a look at it. You can see these foods, and also, of course, like greens and stuff like that. Like basically, like the food that's gonna fill you up. Okay, so vegetables and stuff like that. When you're literally like filled up, you're most likely not going to have any kind of cravings. Okay. So you can fill yourself up with like vegetables and stuff like that, and then that's going to keep you fuller for longer periods of time. It's also because there is more fiber content, then it's going to digest in a longer period of time, and therefore you're most likely not going to be having cravings. Now, talking about like satiety and stuff, another thing is that high protein diets, right? So even if you check my, my exact diet plan, you can see that what I ate during my keto, and you will see that it's obviously a higher protein kind of keto diet, right? So the reason for that is, first, because I wanted to keep as much muscle as possible, and the other reason is that protein really does keep me also very satiated. So these are the two main reasons why I consumed more protein in my diet, okay? So you can also do that. You can have like more chicken breast, for example, like it keeps me satiated for a really long time. I don't know, like beef also does the job really good. Beef is, I think, much better even than chicken, because chicken doesn't really have fat inside. Well, I usually consume like the less fatty chicken parts. But the same thing applies with like beef and stuff, okay? So basically consume a higher protein diet, even if it's like whey protein. Protein is still protein, okay? So it's gonna most likely keep you more satiated. And being more satiated is equals to less cravings, basically. So get rid of sugar if you crave for sugary stuff. Okay, what do I mean by sugar is a refined sugar. So during your transformation, if you are like me, who is into chocolate or like sweets and stuff, right? My suggestion would be completely get rid of refined sugar. Sugar is like a drug for our brain. So our brain gets addicted to it, and then you will have more and more of cravings, and the brain doesn't stop. Okay, so you constantly have sugary kind of stuff cravings. Good thing is, once you stop consuming refined sugar, in about like 4 or 5 days, let's say maximum about a week after, your addiction should pretty much disappear, and your craving for these sugary foods will be way, way, way less than what they were before. Okay, and they're most likely going to end eventually. Okay, so get rid of refined sugar basically. So another thing about cravings is that some of the cravings, they happen because of boredom, right? So what do I mean by that? Sometimes you're sitting at home and like you have nothing to do, and then you suddenly think about like a certain type of food, and then you're like, oh my god, I need this food, and then you think about it more and more and more and more, and eventually it comes to a point that is unbearable, and then you order it or you go and get it basically. Okay, so replace this boredom feelings that you will have that will lead to craving. Okay, so for example, let's say you're bored, you have nothing to do, and then you suddenly start thinking about like some certain type of food. Change whatever you're doing. Okay, it's not helping you to stop your craving, obviously. Okay, I don't know, focus on your job, get a book, drink some water for sure. Basically keep your mind occupied. Get a chewing gum maybe, right, if it helps. Go brush your teeth. Brushing teeth is actually a very good method as well. Brush your teeth with that minty toothpaste, right? It's gonna stop the kind of craving that you're gonna have, and then start thinking about something else, or start doing something else that is gonna take your mind off of whatever food you've been craving. Okay, so another tip: avoid the stuff that triggers your craving. So what do I mean by that? For example, let's say you have a habit of having, let's say, a sandwich, and after every time you have a sandwich, you like to have a cheesecake. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. You will get the idea, basically. So what happens is that because you are so conditioned to it, every time you have a sandwich, you're immediately thinking about cheesecake afterwards, right? And then what makes it that your sandwich is basically your trigger to cheesecake. So eliminate the trigger. So for example, if that happens with you, right, eliminate the first thing that basically creates that craving feeling, that triggers that feeling. Okay, so for example, for me, it's actually sushi. When I have sushi, right, because I like it with like a lot of wasabi and a lot of like soy sauce and stuff like that, right? After basically having sushi, I really like having sweets. So during my body transformation, guess what? 0 sushi consumed. Okay, not even sashimi. Okay, so basically I avoided the trigger that would make me want to have the other stuff. Now, this is the last one. This is actually the 13th one, so I think this has been a very long video with like a lot of hopefully useful tips and tricks and all that kind of good stuff. Let's say it is still very difficult for you to get rid of cravings. Now, there are gonna be 2 options that I did personally, right? Keto and intermittent fasting. So keto is extremely good when it comes to controlling cravings, because most of the cravings happen from insulin spikes, right? After like meals and so on. So once you have that insulin spike going on, you start craving for other stuff. With keto, because you have no carbs in your diet, basically, well, almost none, your insulin levels will be extremely stable compared to any other diet, and that is going to help you stop cravings. Basically, you're gonna stop having cravings. This is what I was like on keto, although it changed in the very end, but I will come to that in another video. But like for like 5.5 months almost, I literally had like 0 craving. It was unbelievable. I mentioned it in my video about keto. So although I'm not a big fan of cutting entire food groups, you understand, like cutting sugars, stuff like that is acceptable for me. But like I don't like the fact that you have to cut a whole full food group. But your goal, you have a set goal, right? You want to have a body transformation. So doing keto for like 3 months, 4 months, or like, on a short basis, just so that you can control your, cravings and you can achieve your goals, I think it's quite acceptable. And you should think about that. You can consider, basically, okay? I'm not an advocate of keto or intermittent fasting. I'm just telling you what I think can be helpful and what can be deployed as, a leverage that, maybe otherwise you wouldn't be able to have. And also the other thing is, just as I said, intermittent fasting also helps control your insulin levels. And also because on an intermittent fasting, you're mentally already set for not having any kind of calories during a certain time window. So it's basically going to get you that even if you have cravings, well, guess what? It is your basically fasting window. You cannot have anything, okay? And actually that helps tame your mind, gives you a little bit more discipline. So you can also try that. I actually recommend like everyone just, if you're going through a body transformation or something, you can just try it just to, help increase your willpower and teach yourself a little bit more discipline, because as I said, mind is a very powerful weapon that is very good at convincing you to do whatever it wants you to do, okay? So, and that's gonna be pretty much it for this video. So, hopefully you enjoyed the video. This is a very long video, so I apologize for that. I didn't want it to be this long, but the previous versions were much longer than this. Feel free to comment below with anything related to the subject or whatever question or whatever feedback you have. Like the video if you enjoyed watching it, and share it with your friends if they also deal with like cravings and stuff like that, okay? I tried to cover as many things as possible, and I think it's been a very in-depth video. If in the future I have change of mind or I need to add something, I will maybe make a new video or update this one and stuff like that, okay? So, and also subscribe to the channel. I'm also on Instagram. Some people keep asking me about like Instagram. I'm gonna link it now, like on the description. I'm gonna write it as a link, okay? So you can go and follow me. I'm not active on Instagram, like I don't post pictures or anything, but you can actually communicate with me if you want. But I'd rather you talk to me on comments, okay? So, subscribe to the channel, and thanks again for watching. I'll see you on the next one.